Hello, everybody. Hello. We are setting up still. I don't know if we have anybody in the chat room today or not. I just sat down. I haven't had a chance to look. It's not Monday. I haven't changed that from yesterday. What's up, Carl? I'm running around like a kook. Adam got hung up at the doctor. Be back in a minute, hopefully. Multitask away. All right, AJ is home. It'll be a couple of minutes. Let me change this. Hello, India, India. Go for it. What's the question? This old house with Romeo Hotel. I have to take a deep breath. Okay, text me later. Are you back on normal schedule, Cynthia, India, or are you still 5-5? Let's see, banners. Let's add one. Add banner. Show. Much angst. Yeah, I bet. I bet. I know you guys aren't hearing anything. We're waiting on AG. He's pulling into the house as we speak. I'm loading up some audio.
Hello, RH and AG. Charlie Mike from the Frozen North. One more time.
Yep, I hear you. Yes, I got the iPad back. However, he had hidden it. That's why I'm running around the house looking for it. So I had to tear a few rooms apart looking for it. This is my happy face. All right, that one is deleted. Deleted. I really can't comment on that. I don't know what to say. Wish I had some music to play. It won't be music you want to hear. No, that's fine. You don't have to go back and delete anything. It's all good. I think you said yesterday in the chat room that you guys use the VFR climbs out there in the Watermelon Mountains. Did you think we were crazy when we said it on the show the last week when we were clearly not educated on that portion of the 7110? All right. Hello. We do a ton of VFR climbs. Yep, laughed hysterically when you guys hadn't heard of them. Well, that's because we have little tiny bumps in the surface of the earth out here.
Yeah.
Hello.
There.
Y'all good?
Yeah.
Carl likes your hat.
Oh, good. I feel so much better now.
The purple and orange know the game and ask often. I don't know who the orange is. I don't know if we're talking about the same people. Oh, no, that is purple and orange. Yeah. I'm surprised they can do that.
Well, I mean, there's allowed to, and then there's.
All right. Are you ready to hit record on your side?
I am.
This is totally off script. We have a script, but we don't have any of our fancy stuff. You know them. Yeah, they hustle. Okay. I'm ready to hit record when you are.
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, recording. I have 3 red lights and a timer.
Yes.
1,
2,
3,
4.
All right. No music today. We are doing a follow-up bonus episode to the obstacle departure procedures episode we did with Max Trescott and a follow-up with RH Solo. Today we have both of us. We got a lot of comments and questions. We're going to try to cover some of those today, some of the common ones that we received in the inbox, and it'll pretty much be based on just that today. No normal format. For those of you listening to the show for the first time, this is a bonus. Our normal weekly episodes are a totally different format. If you have not heard the ODP episode, the bonus from around the middle of January, go check that out before you listen to this show. And if you have any questions about this or anything we talk about today, send it in. What's up, AG?
Hello, everyone.
Happy Tuesday.
It's the day after yesterday.
It is. I feel like we just got done with this.
Let's see. It's 3 days after 2 days before yesterday. Right.
Never heard it worded that way, but I think
we do that in the household here. We try to word days like that as oddly as possible.
I see you've taken over banners. Good.
Yes.
I did not edit any music into our show from yesterday when we lost our soundboard, so it's just like we recorded it.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
All right. So I already said this, but I'll repeat it again. Today's feedback is only related to obstacle departure procedures and that episode. And we have, let's see, how many do we have today? 6. One of them, a couple of them are a little bit longer, but we're going to get through all of them. You want odds or evens?
Ooh, I did look at some of these. Ooh, man, 5 is a doozy.
We'll split 5.
Ooh.
We'll do that together
Okay.
because 6 is audio.
What's
So
5? All right. I'll start then.
all right. Number 1.
From patron Juliet Hotel. Last week, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago, it's hard to tell when you're listening to this show. It's just a bit, you could have gone down the rabbit hole of, who knows how many episodes ago. Yeah. You spent a while discussing an ODP and cheating by taking off opposite direction and popping a 180 to fly outbound because the ODP said one runway was NA. Am I missing something? Was this a controlled tower? I thought ODPs were optional on the part of the pilot. My understanding is that I can take off either runway at an uncontrolled field, and I can also choose to fly an ODP or not. As long as ATC has released me from a certain runway, I'm good to go. No need to call it cheating at all. It's 100% kosher.
Okay, now he sent that feedback in actually before we did the ODP episode.
Right. That's what I was going to say is we've done a 180.
we have.
We popped a 180 on this subject. We were not comfortable with the idea of, just making something up, departing on a runway that says NA. We didn't like that at first glance. We've dug into this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We're okay. You're right. It is 100% kosher. It is well within your right. Now, like RH discussed in the bonus episode, there is legal and then there is, prudent. At some of these places, like in the example of what's the name of that airport out in California near San Francisco?
Half Moon Bay.
Right. So that's the one we were talking about. I think to what he's referring to here. And you could do that, most likely do it very safely, especially if the weather's good. But there are airports where not flying an ODP could be really bad, really bad. You're taking a huge risk in doing that. So anyway, you were right, Juliet Hotel at the time, and we were not 100% correct, but I still stand by some of the stuff we said on that.
Mm-hmm.
That you then covered, the reasons why in that episode. So
yeah, so like the Half Moon Bay example is benign. If you go out the runway that's NA, it's over water. If you went straight out and climbed to a certain altitude, you would be fine. However, if you turned eastbound, you'd be aimed at the same mountains that were applicable if you took off on the opposite runway if you had an eastbound course. Right. So you're going to have to do homework beforehand to determine whether or not it makes sense to ignore it or not. I don't want to say the blanket not authorized is unsafe in all places. And that one, it will probably work out, provided you haven't turned immediately towards the mountains that were still a factor. So, yeah, we dug deep into that one, and we cited several examples where not authorized or taking off in the blind, not caring, thinking it didn't matter, would harm you. That would end up slamming the airplane into granite. So,
right. And all of this assumes that you're a Part 91 operator.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. But I think we covered Juliet hotels. Hopefully he's heard that episode, and I'm hoping that the whole point of doing that was to kind of curve that mentality of it's optional. Yes, it's optional, but find out what's going to happen if you don't follow it. You need to do some homework.
Right.
All right. I will get number 2 from SCAC patron Romeo Lima Hotel. All right. I want to say thank you to RLH for spending some time. He looked at the video before we published it. He pointed out some of my errors in my rambling. See, I was by myself, and I didn't have you to, kind of correct me and say, whoa, you said something wrong. And a lot of that was made up. I didn't have a script I was reading the whole time. So I made a couple little errors along the way. Anytime I said feet per minute was likely, if I was referring to the actual limitations in the takeoff minimums, I was referring to feet per nautical mile. That's an important distinction. You don't have a feet per nautical mile instrument in your airplane, so you're going to have to convert based on a presumed ground speed and do a little bit of homework to figure out if your airplane can do it. We talked about that. I made a reference to 0 for Part 91, 0 visibility. I said 0 clouds when I should have said the ceiling was indefinite, or essentially at the runway level. You were in the cloud.
Yeah. Okay. I remember you saying that, and I remember kind of thinking, but then you said you're in the cloud.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. It's good to clear that up. One very specific quote is about the performance of a Skyhawk, which RLH has a lot of experience in. I implied that the climb rate was possible in that plane. RLH says, yes, you can do that on a cool enough day at the airport elevation. But remember, you have to hold that climb rate to 6,400 feet off of runway 33. This is one of the examples in the ODP, or 5,100 feet off of runway 15. Discussing climb rate of a 172 Skyhawk 172 November model. Since we are leaving 2,857 foot field elevation on a standard day, using table on 514 of the POH shows more of a complete climb rates with temperatures than the table that I did show, which is good. It's on page 515. In either table, notice how the climb rate drops off at altitude. We climb at 530 feet per nautical mile, but if it's 77 degrees, which is 25 degrees Celsius, which is not abnormal in North Carolina in the spring and summer, then that translates to about 20 C by the time we get to 6,400 feet, and our climb rate is down to 331 feet per nautical mile. If it's 85 degrees in the summer, we're down to 326 feet per nautical mile at 6,400. No bueno. All right. He was pointing out that I implied that it was probably okay to assume your airplane can do that, and it wasn't a stretch. Now, I didn't go in and do a lot of interpolation. He did. And it, in fact, would be a stretch for that airplane on a normal spring or summer day. It will be a stretch to maintain those. So, all right. In closing, RLH said, bottom line, if it says NA, there is a reason. If you depart IFR from an airport with no procedure, you better do your homework. I agree 100%. If you're flying at VFR at night in many places, it's IFR.
I could not agree more with that statement.
Yes. And I think anybody who's been in an airplane at night, VFR, no clouds.
Right.
But they're also aiming at a sea of darkness, knows there are no references to anything that are going to help you.
Hey, and moon illumination matters here. I don't know if that's, I might have mentioned that before, but to us in the Army, it was super important. Even on an unaided flight where you don't have goggles, we're looking at moon illum, and the difference between like a full moon at 100% or 90 to 100% and 10% or 5%, a tiny sliver, like the moon goes down, 2 hours after sunset or something. That is really important. And a lot of people, I don't know if it's not something that they've thought about before, but the moon phase is super critical. And I would encourage everyone to kind of take a look at that, incorporate that into your night planning and your risk assessment, because it makes a huge difference. Huge.
Right. And, you know, and in your example with the moon, if you had a 7,000 foot ceiling, most VFR guys are going to say, great, I don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Guess what that does? It's a shade for the moon. You get
It completely blocks the moon.
it's black. So you depart in some non-city like areas where there's, you know, no roads, no visible towers or anything. It's desolate. You're staring into darkness. There's you and
There's
your
no
instruments.
reflection off the clouds
Right.
from the city. There's nothing.
Which, by the way, it's very hard to see clouds even close. If you don't have any backdrop of any light from the moon, you have no idea you're about to go in the clouds. None.
Exactly. Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
My
Ooh,
check airman
boy.
on my private check ride was adamant about doubling the limits. I'm not saying that you guys all have to do this. This was his claim to fame. He wanted private pilots to take all the rules in the book for VFR limitations, all the cloud clearances, all the times required for VFR flight in reference to fuel, and basically double them. He said, and then you might have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But flying at minimum VFR conditions in daytime, let alone night, you're pushing your luck. And in terrain, like we reference in these episodes, bad news bears. It's not going to work out.
If you inadvertently go into the clouds in mountainous terrain at night, you have a serious problem.
Mm-hmm.
You better really know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that just gives me the heebie-jeebies. That's.
I promise you won't be saying, but I thought ODPs were optional at that point.
Yeah, right.
That won't be the last
Better
thing.
know where you are.
Yes.
All
right.
All right.
Thank you, RLH, for helping with that and contributing to that. We appreciate your feedback. And thank you. That's it. You want to do number 3?
Number 3. From patron Juliet Mike. Sent an audio that was based on a misunderstanding of something we said about climbing in VFR on an ODP. He thought we were implying that you had to be in VMC to climb on an ODP. It was based on Charlie Mike's climbing on the ODP VFR in VMC without an IFR clearance before calling ATC. I think we cleared that up.
We did.
Right?
Yep.
2 episodes ago.
Yep. That's why I'm not even going to play the audio and make it even more confusing. And I cleared it up with feedback with him on an email as well. But I did want to make sure we said it one more time, and you just did. So
Okay. But if there is confusion, an IFR clearance from the ground, right, is all you need to fly into clouds while flying the ODP.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
You don't have to remain VMC if you got your clearance on the ground.
Correct.
But if you took off VFR, if you're not on an IFR clearance, if ATC has not said cleared to, you should not be going into the clouds.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. We got that. We said that again. I feel better.
All right. Good.
Thank you, Juliet Mike, for sending that audio in and for your immediate replies to my replies. So, number 4 from Sierra Bravo in the Frozen North. That's their requested name. Awesome. RHAG, awesome bonus discussion on ODPs. Just one thing I want to add. Even if there is an obstacle departure procedure, don't just blindly accept it. Look at the terrain and understand why it is there. There might be a good reason why you might want to slightly alter it for GA aircraft. Before I even go into this is an amazing point. I love this guy. I love this one. I attached an example where I would use my Part 91 privileges, I like that, and instead use a friendly amendment to the ODP. The ODP at, I'll just say, it doesn't matter what airport. It sends you out on a heading of 304, aimed right at the gap in a ring of mountains around Lake Placid, but only a heading is given. I have departed that airport with 26 knots of wind. In a slow general aviation airplane, this can easily make a wind correction angle of 20 degrees, and the angle is likely growing as you climb. Well, a ground track of 284 or 324, 20 degrees either side of that, 304. Did you like that?
I like it. Yeah.
That points you right at a mountain. Admittedly, with the prescribed climb gradient, I would be above the granite, but not above the turbulence 26 knots generates when mixed with mountains. All right, very good point. And I don't think I don't know that we've ever seen it reference a track. It does say heading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, frequently, yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen one that says a track, but if you're hitting the field goal posts of two mountains, there's likely wind.
Yeah.
That you need to consider, which leads me to the other portion of, if you can't maintain those climb gradients, they want VFR conditions, and that would presumably resolve that tracking issue
Right.
with wind, because you can see outside.
Yeah, hopefully, if you're getting pushed and you can look out the plane and see, you're just gonna. Oh no! It's heading 304. No, sorry. You get what you get.
It'll work out. Trust me. I'm aimed right at, but it says through. No,
it says in the ODP right here.
That's a really, really good point. Man,
that is a good point.
It's kind of scary when you think about it.
Right.
All right. He continues. So rather than flying a heading, I prefer having actual course guidance. Not surprisingly, the gap in the mountain is also used by the RNAV approach into that airport. So just putting its final approach fix, he put the name of the fix, as a first waypoint on the flight plan gives you active guidance through the gap. If nothing else, that gives you a very good feeling when entering the clouds. Cheers and thanks for the podcast, Sierra Bravo. I noticed there's another Sierra Bravo, so how about I claim Sierra Bravo in the frozen north? Okay. P.S. I noticed the ODP at this airport points right at a prison. Is that a coincidence? Sierra Bravo out. All right. First, thank you for sending that awesome point in. That's very good. Now, this goes back to a little bit of homework before you take off. You looked at plates going into the airport. You found a fix that goes in between. I don't see anything wrong with that. If it's the course guidance that he's looking for and it matches that guidance,
yeah,
I think that's a good technique. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, this wasn't legal. I mean, in terms of FARs or anything, but we did that all the time in overseas.
Mm-hmm.
You're on a route. It is in the mountains. It is at night, and there is no way with 40 guys and all their stuff that I am climbing over a 13,000, 14,000 foot, peak to get out of this valley. Not happening. So we had points on the route, and as long as you were within, a mile left or right, of course, at each leg had its own altitude, you knew you were safe. Now, our margin of error, our margin of safety is way less than the FAA's.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is it raining? I think I left the dog outside. Hang on.
Okay.
You continue.
Okay.
I left the dog.
Uh-oh. Wet dog, mad dog. About the prison question, I'm not sure that's a coincidence or not. I'd have to look at the map. I mean, I think it's just awful convenient that there's a building there that happens to be a prison. But while AG is gone, I will look at the chat room and see if I'm missing any questions. No moon, black hole. Yes, fact, right there. Amen. Love it. I wonder if there's a way to incorporate that into private pilot training. So you'd have to aim yourself in a direction that wasn't towards the city, and there was, you could really make that point with your students so they understand. I mean, you don't even need the foggles. Watch them get disoriented. Moon illumination is super important for night flying. Also 100% agree. I treat night flying as IFR. Awesome. All right, we have a lot of agreement in the room. Darth Pilot, when we do night currency landings in the mountains, we usually wait for a decent moonlight. Cool. Night currency in the mountains. Did you find your dog crawling in your crawl space or swimming in the crawl space?
He was stuck. I'm surprised he wasn't out there just crying because the cord, his little leash thing was stuck on the deck, and he was stuck. And normally he's crying, like, please, someone
help me.
I can't get to the door. So he just barked once. I was really surprised.
All
He's
right.
fine. I'm sure I'll hear about it later.
We had a couple comments about moon illumination, treating night flying as IFR. Love it. We had a good active chat room today.
Oh, good.
All right. Speaking of Darth Pilot, am I odds or your odds? We'll split this one. You tell me when you need a break.
It's my turn, and then we'll split this up.
Okay.
From SCAC patron Darth Pilot. RH, I wanted to separate this email from the other simply because it addressed a specific comment you made about SIDS. At 57 minutes, you state that if a pilot accepts a clearance that includes a SID, they are required to comply with the published minimums, even operating Part 91. I agree with you that the FAA would have made life a lot easier for all of us if they just included Part 91 ops in CFR 91-175. Since they didn't, it has led to a lot of confusion. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Finish that sentence, and I'm going to say something real quick.
Okay. It has led to a lot of confusion and numerous arguments for the last 54 years.
Okay, we went back and forth a little bit. He sent a reference to a legal interpretation of a pilot who subjected that same question about a takeoff minimums specific to visibility in a SID, separate from takeoff performance minimums that are listed on SIDs. So I just wanted to clarify that. The letter that he was providing was referencing that Part 91 pilots would still not be, according to this legal interpretation, even with the minimums in a SID that they accepted, the visibility minimums, that didn't override Part 91-175 that omitted Part 91 pilots from having to fly those minimums. I know, we're getting into the weeds. It'll make sense in a minute.
Okay.
All right.
Where was I?
The second paragraph.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's starting exchange of information, and I admitted I did a little homework this morning to find out why I said compliance. Oh, this is you talking.
Yeah.
Okay. The Landis letter addresses weather minima, not performance minima. FAR 91-175F is also specific to weather minimums. I have found a few references to performance requirements, specifically the Instrument Procedures Handbook, Chapter 1, page 29. In order to accept a clearance that includes a SID, you must have the charted SID procedure in your possession at the time of departure. It is your responsibility as pilot in command to accept or reject the issuance of a SID by ATC. You must accept or reject the clearance based on the ability to comply with the required performance. The ability to navigate to the degree of accuracy required for the procedure, possession of the charted SID procedure, and personal understanding of the SID in its entirety. That's an important word there.
Mm-hmm.
Further down in that paragraph, it says, when departing with the SID, ATC expects you to fly the procedure as charted because the procedure design considers obstacle clearance.
Yes. So this is a soapbox again. I'll make it real quick. All the references in the regs that Part 91 pilots get taught it from the beginning about it not applying to them are reference to weather. Part 91-175 talks about weather minimum 0-0. We could take off in 0-0. It has no references to performance at all. A SID takeoff minimums, when you look on most plates, the takeoff minimums for a SID will say the weather, and then it'll say a minimum climb requirement for that airplane. Totally separate from the regs, which muddies it up. So we, in our exchanges, we both agree that the performance, if you accept the SID, you need to be able to do that. If you can't, you should say, I cannot do this SID.
Right.
Okay.
That only makes sense.
It does, but if you're locked into, I'm Part 91, and these don't apply to me, are you even going to consider the climb gradient requirements? Do you realize that SID was based on getting you out in flow of traffic and having some obstacle consideration? I'm telling you, you're laughing, but that is not a consideration that you get taught in the private and instrument stage. Okay. It's not thought of. At least it wasn't for me, and I admitted that because I was out in the flat East Coast. We do not have those conversations.
Right.
Because we're Part 91 and the minimums don't apply. So this is where they kind of merge together as, all right, visibility is one thing. Performance, you better figure that out or you're gonna hit something.
Yeah. I mean, there's just no getting around that.
Right.
If it says you need to be at this altitude by this point.
Well, not all of them have climbing.
Well, no, I understand. But I mean, as far as a feet per nautical mile, that is saying you need to be at,
Yes.
you can interpolate it out. I need to be at this altitude, this many miles away.
Okay. Yes.
And that's affording you obstacle clearance. How much are you willing to fudge that? If it's 2,000 feet mountainous, are you willing to go, oh, well, I'll just do 1,000 feet less?
Right.
No.
No bueno.
I'm not willing to do that. No. I want to go over.
Yes.
I want to perform beyond the requirement.
And we're going to talk about specific examples where it would be virtually impossible for most general aviation airplanes to make these requirements. But you could skip to the part in the middle of that paragraph where it says
to the small words.
Yes.
Okay. So he responded, thanks for the quick response. I don't want to be the guy that nitpicks at the things you say. It was a big ask in a podcast for the presenters to be accurate in every word that is said. And I appreciate both of you holding yourselves out for that kind of criticism. And we discussed that yesterday, actually. Those podcasts are a lot of work, and there is nothing worse than some jackass picking apart every little mistake. I hope my first email did not come across that way.
It did not.
It didn't. I don't think so.
No, but it did make me go back and think a little bit. It wasn't Christmas, so don't feel bad.
Right. Look, this stuff is important to us, and it's not about us being right. It's about all of us figuring this out and making sure we're doing what is safe. And so I think I speak for both of us in saying I'm okay if we're wrong, if it leads to us figuring out what is correct and safe. So
Correct.
Please, if we say something that doesn't sound right, please present us with corrections. We're not going to be upset.
All right. You want me to tackle this half?
Sure. Go ahead.
All right. He continues. Gentlemen, listeners, Sierra Bravo's suggestion that using a moving map for climbs over an airport as, quote, acceptable and safe is not universal. The airplanes I fly have a limitation forbidding the use of a moving map as a sole reference of navigation. That precludes using the moving map as a legal means of navigation for any phase of flight with any flight rules. I don't know for sure, but I'm willing to bet other avionics have similar restrictions. The liability for Honeywell, Garmin, etc., seems too great not to include such a limitation. In my case, evaluating whether or not it is safe to climb with reference to the moving map is moot, since the technique is already not acceptable. That's something we did not talk about, and I didn't think of. Very good point.
Right. Yeah. Some companies, it could be the company that manufactures the equipment. It could be the company that you fly for.
Mm-hmm.
There could be all manner of restrictions that somebody says, nope, you can't. That's not the sole means. The Army did that in the F model Chinook. Maybe they've changed it by now, but when I left, the moving map was not, acceptable by itself.
Right.
It's a great tool. It's a great tool for situational awareness, but I can't just go punching into the clouds, looking at my moving map and we had overlays you could put on so that you're looking at the IFR low chart on the moving map. So you really could see where, exactly where you were on this thing, but that was not a navigation tool. So, yeah.
All right. I am regularly assigned the Truck 4 ODP attached below. I had to make those a little bit bigger. Sorry, I made them too small. I widened them out on my Zoom here so we can discuss them. As a part of an ATC clearance when departing the other Lake Tahoe airport. I'm not sure if this is actually traffic related, as there is an inordinate amount of granite to fly into, but it could be. Also available is the Tahoe 1 RNAV SID, which is also attached, but it is rarely cleared because supposedly it lies on the border of Oakland Center and NorCal TRACON and requires coordination between facilities. That's frustrating. The SID is actually the better lateral route for terrain avoidance, but no efforts to get cleared via the SID are effective. I don't know how to say that word. Have you any ideas why we cannot get cleared via the SID rather than the ODP? If it is inconvenient for air traffic and they are not going to clear the procedure, why bother publishing it? Great point. I don't know why that's happening. There could be a couple other things over there with radios and Who knows? That could be a number of things. I'm not sure.
But the controllers were the last people
Yes,
consulted in this process.
correct.
Like they had already made it, and then they said, "Here, how does this look?"
Right.
And the controller said, "That's right on the border. It's going to be a huge pain."
Yeah. So an RNAV is newer than the Truckee 4. Been around for less time, and the LOA between the facilities that interact in that area, it could be 20 years old.
Right.
Now that seems like, oh, we'll just go fix it. There's a lot of moving parts with that, and it's very hard to get attention, especially from an airport like Truckee, or the other Tahoe airport that you call it. That might not be as readily available as you think. So,
yeah,
I'm going to put that up on the screen if I can figure out how to do that in a second. Also, 2 of the 4 runways at the other Lake Tahoe airport do not have ODPs. Huh. This is a full-hearted place to, quote, roll your own, as Mike Kilo's article said, since the airport is surrounded on all sides by rapidly rising terrain. Where do you need to go so urgently that you have to make up your own personal departure procedure anyway? Very good point. All right, let me see if I can do a share screen here. I'm going to make this big enough. We'll talk about the minimums on here. Hold on. Application window. My computer is not locking up. Can you see that?
Yes.
Let's take the banner down, and I'll do a little zoom.
Oh, banner. Sorry, that's me. Stand by. Oop, I did the wrong one.
Yeah, we gave the banner crew the day off, so it's you.
Okay.
All right, this departure procedure requires takeoff minimums. Runway 11 and 20 not authorized. Obstacles. Well, that's plain as day. Thank you for saying that. It doesn't just say NA, it says why. You'll hit something. Runway 2, standard or lower than standard if authorized, with a minimum climb of 415 feet per nautical mile to, wait for it, 11,500 feet.
Oh,
I can tell you the Skyhawks cannot do that.
that's pretty high.
Or 3,300 foot ceilings and 3 miles for climb in VMC. I don't have the airport diagram, so I'm not sure what the elevation is of this airport, but
I can't read the thing. It's too small, but help me understand this. You need to go to 11,000 something feet.
Correct.
What is a 3,500 foot ceiling going to do for you?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what the airport elevation is.
It's not 8,000 something, is it?
It's 5,000-ish.
Okay, well,
because
it's up there, but
if you look down in
still.
the obstacle notes, there's 60 feet AGL, which is 5,939, so close to 5,900 feet MSL.
I still don't get it.
All right, this must be an amazing JEP chart, because look what it did for you. It shows you what the takeoff minimums are in case you're scratching your head going, what are takeoff minimums? What's standard mean? It gives those.
Oh.
And then it gives you a fancy little chart. If your ground speed, let's just say, is 150 knots,
Okay.
415 feet per nautical mile is a climb rate of 1,038 feet per minute. That's the instrument you can use in your airplane. There is no way.
Do that single engine.
You couldn't do that,
The
right?
King Air wouldn't do that single engine, no.
No. Do I need to zoom this in a little bit more? Here, there we go. 500 feet per nautical mile, that same 150 knot ground speed is 1,250. So that's more of a jet performance numbers over the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
75 knots to 100, you can interpolate in there between 625 feet per minute and 833 feet per minute. At those altitudes, those are enormous. That's not possible. And if maybe if it's super cold, but yeah, no.
Not 833.
No.
No.
No. And you guys when you do your performance in the King Air, you talk about worst case. You lose an engine.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to do 120. So it's going to be, we're talking up at 8,000, 5 to 11,000 feet. 11,000? Oh, man. No way am I taking off out of there in bad weather.
Right.
No way. If I lose an engine, after if the ceiling's like 1,000 feet and I lose an engine right after you punch in, it's going to be really, really sketch to meet that climb gradient single engine.
Right.
Oh man. No way.
All right, the procedures down there I'll just go through runway 2, climbing left turn to 11,500 on a heading of 275. And you have a radial to truck, or for a climb and visual conditions, heading 290 at or above 9,100 feet. Then proceed on the 002 radial to truck when executing the visual climb over the airport. Notify ATC prior to departure. The weather better be really, really nice for you to try this kind of thing. Mountainous terrain, wind, using an airport.
Using radials and not
Yeah.
headings.
Which is good. Now we have a track.
Right.
All right, let's go to the second one. I'll have to zoom it in.
Just makes my case for, telling pilots to fly ground track this.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is the one he said he was not able to get cleared for, even though it's a little bit easier, and it looks like it's a little more straightforward in terms of the initial climb. A heading up to 6,400 feet, then a climbing left turn direct to powder and RNAV fix. The climb performance is relatively the same, but again, they list runway 11 and 20 is not authorized. Why? Obstacles. You will hit something.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Like
All right.
mountains.
I have to zoom this down, stop sharing screen, and I'll go ahead with. In a very early OB episode, a listener promoted briefing the ODP as an escape or extraction maneuver when rejecting a landing past the missed approach point and below the MDA. I remember this episode. That was the first time we really got into the weeds.
Oh yeah, we were talking about going missed in mountainous terrain below the MDA, right?
Yes. So now you're below the MDA and you met the requirements, visibility and clouds for the arrival, but you may not necessarily have the performance or the visibility requirements for the departure of an ODP.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. We could revisit that conversation now with this, how we've brushed up on this on the departure part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you really now need to pay attention when you're going into an airport. Can I get out of that airport?
Right. Well, yeah.
I know we said that then, but
mm-hmm.
seems even more.
All right.
relevant.
Darth Pilot said it's a better than nothing idea, but I cannot find an official reference promoting it, which should induce some caution if considering its employ. We agree. Importantly, the technique is not available at some location where it counts the most. Aspen's localizer DME Echo and Truckey's RNAV runway 20 come to mind, both having missed approach procedures that begin before the runway threshold, and neither of those runways have departure procedures that can be leaned upon when a bear or a cub wander onto the runway on short funnel. Yes, that has happened to me. Oh man, of course, this would be discovered before the flight because Part 91-103 says I got to know everything before I fly, right? By the way, this is a situation where the moving map with a terrain and help me, TAWS overlay could really be a lifesaver. All these acronyms, terrain and
Train avoidance.
oh, yes.
Weather or something, maybe.
Someone in the chat room can help us. TAWS.
Weather.
Okay.
TAWS.
The airlines and some Part 135 operators that frequent Aspen do indeed have an in-house, unpublished escape extraction procedure that have been surveyed, analyzed, and test flown in a simulator. The procedures are very different than the published missed approach. And a lot of those companies also require special training, probably just like that, to even add that onto a trip. You'd have to be checked off to go there. Somebody in the airplane has been there anytime you go. So maybe the captain got checked out previously. You can't be two green pilots going into these type of airports.
Yeah.
I think I mixed up two of these emails and kind of combined them. Thank you for your important podcast. It should be required listening for aviators. I'm currently up to episode. Listen to this. I'm episode 128 in the back catalog and still going. I drove across the country and back not too long ago and managed to get through over 100 episodes at 1.5 to 2 times speed. Alas, I may never be able to listen to either of you in real time due to your faster cadence indelibly imprinted in my noggin. You're definitely, there it is, terrain avoidance and warning system. Darth Pilot is in the chat room. Sincerely, a recent patron, Darth Pilot. I chose this title because my email contains my initials, and with your listener base growing, the binomials are getting hard for my old brain to keep up with. Well, that's not the problem. It's the fact that you listened to 100 episodes on a cross country. Oh, please share your stories in the future. And says you better explain why the dark side is more befitting of me. Very good feedback, Darth Pilot. Thank you for sharing those. Very good examples, and for your commentary on email. I really appreciate it. So,
Yeah.
100
Yeah,
I'm curious if you're able to watch this without getting upset. We're talking very slowly, and AG's normal speed might bother your brain.
My contemplative cadence.
Oh, did you want to touch on anything else in that feedback?
I think we
Yeah.
hit on everything.
All right, your odds. You get number 5.
Number 5 from patron Sierra Bravo. We had a back and forth, and this is one of his questions that hopefully can spark some conversation. Why can't the controller be more helpful? I couldn't agree more. Could he not assign an obstacle departure procedure with the clearance? I realize that's not the current procedure, but why not? Or what if the controller simply added to the clearance, advised which obstacle departure procedure you will be using? Now the pilot would think to himself, oh, there's a departure procedure? I better look that up. Or if the weather permits, he could simply tell the controller he will avoid terrain visually. I feel as though most of the controlled flight and terrain accidents that have occurred on departure in the weather were the result of the pilot not knowing there was an obstacle departure available. Yeah, well, it's hard to know because presumably they did not survive the accident. So we don't know if they knew that there was one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess that they didn't.
Or they did and thought,
or they did.
I'm part 91.
Doesn't apply to me. Yeah.
Right. Why do I have to
Hopefully
look?
that's not what happened. But as far as the controller signing it, some do apparently. I mean, yeah, I guess that's common, pretty common out west. I have never done it.
Right.
I don't know that anyone has or not. I don't. Yeah, I guess it would be a good reminder for pilots. I don't know. I just feel like it's another thing that, if it becomes a requirement for the controller to do that, that now it's going to be another thing that it's the responsibility of the controller now to do it. And if you don't, and something happens, now they're pinning this, on the controller.
Right. Now, in fairness, the ODPs in our airspace are very benign, even towards the north with, I can't remember what we call Pilot Mountain Airport, but the one up at Racetrack to the north, it's super benign. It has you climbing away from the terrain for very little distance above the ground before you're able to proceed on course. Now, Darth Pilot said the Truck 4 is an ODP and it's part of almost every clearance out of Truckee. Great. That's awesome. Because it's not just because of flow out of Lake Tahoe.
Right.
Which I'm sure there are planes going in and out of there, but that's because of mountains, and that's great. That's good to see. But I don't want to say ours don't matter, but they're very benign. There's low likelihood of a CFIT accident being because a pilot forgot about the ODP here. I'm not suggesting that there's, you shouldn't follow one, but low likelihood that it's going to have much impact.
Basically, I mean, if you depart those airports climbing, you're going to be fine. If you're just climbing, I've flown into both of them, both of those, and the one that's probably the worst at Racetrack in terms of terrain, it doesn't take long, and you're above the terrain. I mean, you could see, it's really not. Yeah, you're right. It's fairly benign.
It's a good time to revisit the fact that the ODP wouldn't exist if 200 feet per nautical mile can be maintained and you can go in any direction around that airport. I'm generalizing on the diverse departure area. That's a very low bar. 200 feet per nautical mile is very low bar. So it could be something that just infringed upon that, and even small single engine non-turbine airplanes are going to be able to maintain and get above that terrain pretty quickly, at least where we are. That's all we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't disagree with his suggestion, especially in those areas where there's terrain for controllers to say which ODP are you going to do. But it might come back to the fact that 91-175 intentionally says that not every pilot has to do it, and maybe they don't want to imply that you should have to do it. I don't know why. It's not my opinion. I wish it was mandatory for everybody, but I'm crazy. I just don't want to hit stuff.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Airplanes are fragile. They're very fragile.
Right. Thank you, Sierra Bravo. Sierra Bravo was the original inspiration of all these episodes too. So thank you for sending that in. And number 6, our last one, is audio from our favorite pilot in the frozen north, SCAC patron Charlie Mike. He sent in 2 audios. We'll talk about both of them real quick. Here's number 1.
Hello, RH and AG. Charlie Mike from the frozen north. Thank you for all of the information on ODP's diverse vector areas, departure procedures. It's all wonderful. I'm eating it up. I've learned a ton. So, in your Sossaman example, I'm on the ground at Sossaman talking to you on the telephone to get my IFR clearance. I would like to just climb out in visual conditions on course, head my way out the valleys, make my way in my directions, assuming I have 5,000 or 6,000 foot ceilings, and head on my way, and then pick up my IFR and route. How would you like me to ask for that? I don't want to do a visual climb over the airport. I'd like to proceed on course. Do I ask for a visual departure? What's the right words to get what I want? Thanks.
All right. Great question. So he's asking, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I guess this just goes back to the whole thing where we were wrong about climb in visual conditions, right? That's what I would ask for.
Yeah, he said 2 things. He said, if I want to get it on the ground, and then, depart IFR, and then he said, I want to fly, get away from all this terrain, dodge and weave, get above it, and then pick up my IFR. So it's 2 different things. If you're gonna get it on the ground, I'll answer the question based on that first scenario. You want to be IFR on the ground, and you want the ability to navigate VFR and get to an altitude before you proceed on course, is what it sounds like, which is common where he's at. He knows the weather's going to be nice. He wants to be able to see, stay away from rocks, and climb. I don't know that there's a magic phrase you could tell our traffic, hey, I need to take off. I want you to give me an IFR clearance. And it may be 5 or 6 miles away from the airport before I get above, radio reception altitude, or where you can see me, or where I'm going to call you, because I'm going to be trying to climb visually. That would probably confuse the controller, at least on our side of the world.
Yeah.
In that case, I would probably respond, hey, if you want to climb VFR and you have the weather for it, call us up airborne, and we'll give you your clearance airborne. You can depart VFR. That would be my simple solution, which leads to the second scenario. I want to take off. I want to do my own thing, and then I want to pick up my clearance. That's what you would be doing. So, strictly speaking, if you wanted an IFR on the ground and didn't say anything to the controller at a non-towered airport, Sossaman's non-towered, there's terrain, there's an ODP, there is no ODP because it doesn't have any instrument approach procedures. You're navigating visually around all this terrain. It would be hard to get that much lateral separation protected by the controller without confusing them, at least where we are. So,
yeah, that would be the trick, because I can let you climb. I can let you climb visually, but the other part of my job is to separate you from other airplanes. So yeah, that's the tricky part. I mean, if there's nobody there, I guess it's known traffic, right? It's separation from known traffic. So if I didn't send anyone in there, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess it comes down to how long it's going to take you to get to an altitude where I can clear you. That could be an exchange. Hey, how high do you need me before you can safely send me on course? What are you looking for? If I did depart VFR, that's a good exchange of information. That, if it's going to take you several miles, because it could be this airport is underneath a deck of clouds and you just want to get, not scud run, but safely remove yourself from that environment before you start climbing, you can communicate that on the phone. I need a little bit of room here. it looks like I can get out, but I need a lateral room to navigate. You're going to have to exchange that information with the controller. I don't know that that's never happened with me. I've never had them ask for that, but we only have a few airports in our airspace that don't have approaches. And it's rare for them to have an IFR departure.
I mean, in a similar situation, this isn't a departure situation, but I have had aircraft that want to do air work, and they asked for, hey, could you block us out 3,000 feet of airspace for 10 miles? And so they give me an actual dimension, and now I can definitely do that. So maybe, you on the phone, you ask, hey, could I get 15 miles to the west, or to the northwest, or whichever way you're going, and they can block a geographic area that, that has some quantitative thing instead of just, hey, I'm going to depart and I need to go for a little ways before I get. And then maybe if you don't get it in that 15 or whatever mileage you agree with, if you can't get to the altitude you need, you're going to have to turn around and call them back. I would be willing, if I was a controller, I would be willing to buy off on something like that. I'd even give you a clearance on the ground, climb visually, maintain VFR within 15 miles of the airport, and call me at 6,500, whatever. If not VFR by 15 miles, I don't know how you would word it, but I think there's a safe, way to do that. I think there's.
If you were dead set on being IFR when you departed, it would be a little bit trickier. But if you're prepared to climb visually in VFR conditions, it's not often that we endorse this, but this will be a good example of pick it up in the air, and you reduce the confusion with the controller. They only have to start protecting laterally when you ask for your clearance,
right,
and determine what's going on. They can also give you an idea. Hey, is there any traffic around here? I'm trying to do this maneuver. I'm going to be looking at terrain and clouds. Do you see anybody around me? I'm taking off like in a minute. Nope, we don't see anybody around you. There's no traffic observed. Call us airborne. We won't be able to hear you until about 4,000 feet above the ground. Hang up, go take off, do your thing, and call air traffic.
Yeah.
Cool. You want to get the second audio? Thank you, Charlie Mike. Here's the second one.
Hello, RH&AG. Charlie Mike from the Frozen North. One more time. Loving all these episodes on departures. So, why don't the SIDS publish the crossing altitudes for the fixes similar to stars? It would be a whole lot easier if that first or second intersection coming out of the airport had an altitude on it. Minimum crossing altitude, 2,200 feet. I can still figure the climb gradient per nautical mile and make sure my airplane can perform there. But why isn't it just published instead of me having to figure it out? I do figure it out so that I know, can check myself that I am climbing steep enough. Just a question. Maybe the TERP self has the answer.
That's a good question. I don't know that there are a lot of SIDs that have crossing restrictions and minimum crossing altitudes that I feel like are more based on traffic.
That was exactly what I was going to say.
It's not terrain as much as clearing traffic. We're clearing the arrivals that are being fed. And Atlanta's a perfect example. I'm just going to go back to my Atlanta days. Going in and out of there were several, and I don't have them in front of me, so I'm going off of memory, which I've admitted my memory is terrible. You oftentimes had to top the downwind. So before you turned towards, a crosswind on your departure, you had already topped the arrivals that were going underneath you. So this is air traffic 101. When you have a trainee who's confused on how to, I'm going off on a side tangent. When you have a trainee that's confused on what to do next, this seems really basic, but sometimes it really helps to put them in the right frame of mind. You want your arrivals to be lower than your departures if you're trying to cross out. If you have them in the wrong position, everybody's stuck in the wrong spot. If you have an arrival that is stuck above a departure and you're waiting for them to go like this, you have time that you may not have, which means there's a lot of distance going by and you feel trapped. So if you can somehow avoid that and have the departure be up here and the arrival be down here, your life's going to be a lot easier. That's what most SIDs on this side of the world seem to be based on, is crossing and getting clear of conflict, because those departures and arrival controllers are not always talking to each other. They're different sectors. They own different airspace. So I don't know. I I don't think you're ever going to see every 10 miles so an altitude for a GA airplane to cross to figure out your performance.
Right. Yeah. Now it's all based on these guys are doing, idle descents from the flight levels all the way to the airport. And so everything is designed around, all the departures are designed around missing that arrival stream from, typically these places like Four Corners of, planes coming from every direction. And now we're just tunneling departures, under or over those arrivals.
Right. And we run into that problem when we're trying to get away from the arrival stream into Metroplex. We own up to 12,000. The departures are stopping at 13, very close to our edge. If the center controller can't get that departure above that stream, which happens all the time because it's just not possible, because again, they're at an idle descent. They may be still at 18 or 19,000 feet, power to idle, pitch down, not wasting any gas. And that arrival is stuck underneath. I'm sorry, the departure is stuck underneath until they pass laterally. It's got to be frustrating for the center controller. So,
Yep.
I don't have anything else to say about that one.
No.
That's all I have for this episode.
Cool.
Do you have anything you wanted to add? Did you have any questions? I know you finally listened to it.
Yeah. I didn't catch your mistakes. I think I just assumed what you meant, or my brain just interpreted it that way automatically. I didn't catch the nautical mile. I was thinking maybe we could develop an instrument that does feet per nautical mile.
Oh, and maybe
just something.
Maybe go on Shark Tank and pitch that.
Suction up onto the window, It knows your climb rate, it knows your ground speed, and voila. And if you're doing less than 200, you can set parameters, right? So then it starts chirping at you. Beep, 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 beep. Hey, dummy, you're not even meeting the standard climb rate.
When you have an airplane that doesn't meet that, it looks like they're having an emergency. Several years ago, I can't remember what, it was a twin. I think it was a twin that was experimenting on how many boxes can we jam into this airplane? Will this pilot even attempt to take off? What's the movie with Tom Cruise? American.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that experiment took place with me on local, and the airplane took off to the northeast on runway 5, and they were outside of Towers airspace. So we're talking 5 miles away, and they had climbed 800 feet.
Oh my gosh.
So I called downstairs and I said, hey, you might want to ask this guy if everything's all right. Did he lose an engine? I mean, he's not making much progress.
He's clawing his way.
And he had filed for 230. They were in a flash to center, and I said, American made. Thank you, RLH. I said, there is no way that airplane is going to see flight level 230 before he gets to New York. At this rate.
Great.
Not a chance. You're barely at 2,000 feet MSL, and you're already outside of locals airspace. So, all right. I don't have anything else. I think that covers.
Those are frequent comments in the TRACON, where controllers are like, they're needing the plane to climb faster. It should be climbing faster. And it's always somebody saying, man, my grandma in her walker could climb out faster than this guy. It's ridiculous. It's just making fun of the pilots. That's fun.
Yeah. Anything else?
Let's see who's still in the chat room.
Darth Pilot, Echo Mike, RLH was in there. American Made. He quoted the movie. All right, Echo Mike, we could do this in here. I take my students on the same cross country during the day and at night so they can see how few visual references they'll have. Also, I have them fly a practice approach. That is a very good idea. It's a good way to explain to your students that certain things that they think are the most amazing landmarks in the world, like lakes, in the daytime they are. They're terrible at night. surprisingly, you can't see water.
It don't work.
They don't have underwater lighting systems in these lakes. So very good technique. I like that. You tell me if you see anything else there. They talked about the moon illumination, the black hole, and then we're really back at the beginning here. I don't see any more. Any more questions, at least? Hello, Papa Golf. Darth Pilot pointed out that airport was 5,901 feet. That's a high airport.
Yeah.
Now, those pilots that are leaving there and that train in that environment, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that their instructors are teaching them all of this stuff.
Oh, I would hope so.
Just like Max said on his interview, my students are introduced to this very early on in their training, and that is an important point for them. So,
yep.
All right. I don't see any other ones that we haven't talked about.
All
right. Well, if this is your first time listening to the show, again, this is a bonus episode. We're responding to the obstacle departure procedure interview with Max Trescott and some follow-up about airplane performance and terrain and requisite or non-requisite obstacle departure procedures. If you haven't heard that, this episode was probably super confusing. So we will be back.
Listen to the other stuff. Yeah. This one probably was confusing. Go back and listen to the other ones, and then probably like 159, 160, 161. Probably make a little more sense.
Agreed. Thank you, Darth Pilot, RLH, all the other contributors to this show today. We appreciate it, and we will see you next Monday for 162.
Yes.
This is the early release. I'm not going to publish this tonight. I have to prepare a bathroom for a plumber tomorrow, and I have to paint. I have to paint tonight, so this won't come out until tomorrow, at least on the audio only. But if patrons want to watch it, they have the video available. So,
right.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.